Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your internet shop teacher, and I'm sitting in front of the little Rhodes 7-inch shaper. And by the time you watch this video, I will have sold this, so I no longer own it. But before I sell it, dispose of it, and why am I disposing of it? Because I have two south bends and there's just a lot of redundancy and I need to get rid of a few things. But I thought in this video I will compare the Rhodes shaper, which is probably over 100 years old, with the more modern South Bend shapers, which themselves are a 70-year-old design. But there's quite a bit of a difference between the two, so let's get started and I'll point those things out. Now here's the South Bend 7-inch shaper, and these were designed in the late 40s, and this particular model is 1953. As opposed to the Rhodes, which I do not know the exact date, but I suspect that it was 1910 or 1920 or something in that order. But it's really quite old in design and manufacture compared to the South Bend, although, as I said, the South Bend is actually an antique. Standing behind the South Bend, you can well see that it was designed with a motor, an electric motor on it, and a jack shaft, and has 4 speeds when we change the step pulleys and the belts. Total of 4 speeds, that is how many strokes per minute. But looking at the Rhodes, you can see that there's all kinds of other paraphernalia in the castings here, this piece and this. And that was all part of the drive system, and it was driven by an overhead belt, a flat belt. So at some point, and it could be 70 years ago, someone had converted it with the jack shaft and a small electric motor and a belt over on this side, and then we got a belt on this side as well. So because of that, there is only 1 speed. Now there might have been more than 1 speed when it was set up with a flat belt system. I'm not sure. I thought I had some pictures of that. If I can find them, I'll put them at the end of the video. So this is just strictly 1 speed. By the time they made the South Bend, they were very safety conscious. So there are 2 belt guards on this. But when I bought this 7 years ago, there were no belt guards on it. I don't know when they made this conversion, but I built this belt guard and this belt guard. Otherwise, you were afraid to even stand near the thing, lest it grab your shirt. This may seem like a silly thing to mention, but we've got an 8-inch hand wheel here that allows us to move the ram back and forth as we make adjustments. So there's quite a bit of leverage compared to the South Bend with a piddly little 5-inch, which I have already discovered is not sufficient really for the job. So I much prefer the big wheel. And similarly, the South Bend has a smaller crank right here than does the Rhodes. The Rhodes shaper has a very substantial, heavy cast iron base. Hollow, of course. There is a door here, but no shelves in there for storage. Looking over, of course, at some point South Bend started to make sheet metal cabinets, and I do like that. It's pretty substantial, and it has storage drawers, which is very nice. And this weighs 90 pounds, according to the shipping weight in the catalog. I do not know what the cast iron weighs, but there are some leveling screws down here, but I guess there are as well if screws were incorporated into this base, or if it was screwed or bolted to the floor. The Rhodes shaper does not have dovetail on the ram. It's a straight system, and here's the gib for it. I'm sure it's quite sufficient. And there are nice wipers here on both sides. The South Bend shaper has dovetails. The gib is on the other side. Be sure and watch my many other videos. There's a 10-part video on this. I believe that this is a superior system, but I'm not totally positive of it. Now this is my older South Bend shaper. Notice that the dovetails have to be lubricated with Gitz oilers. There's 3 of them here and 3 on the other side, which you cannot see. But in 1953, they changed the whole system and put a pressurized oiling system which incorporates an oil pump, and you've seen that in my other video. And because of that, there are little oil return galleries here. So we always know that we're getting plenty of oil on those dovetails as well as several other working parts in the crankcase. The Rhodes shaper has no oil pump, so it's necessary to oil right there. I don't know if you can see the little hole right there, and also 2 on the other side. But of course, you can also oil it while it's in motion. The South Bend uses 1 screw with a square head in order to allow you to swing the clapper box. Also, the graduated dial is the usual chintzy 1-inch diameter South Bend type, very difficult to read. The slide for the clapper box, it can be swung on this, and notice that there's 2 screws. I guess it just allows you to get it a little bit tighter. And this dial is a lot easier to read. It is almost 1.5 inches, and it's at a slant, at an angle, so it's just really easy to pick up with the old eyeballs. The table on the South Bend is relatively lightweight, and you've seen me paint it. It's about 1/2 inch thick, here. So it would lack a little bit of rigidity, but it has this wonderful foot that comes down and is adjustable to keep the whole thing from moving as we cut. So that's a good feature, and all larger shapers have that. But let's take a look at the Rhodes. Well, the table on the Rhodes lacks any support, but it's massively thick, a full 1 inch. Now that would be able to absorb a lot of vibration and so on, but it's still at a loss because it is unsupported, in my opinion. I'm not exactly sure what you call this part, but it does not have dovetails on it like the South Bends, and there is a gib here that can be tightened for the vertical lock. That's out of your sight here, but it's just a square-headed bolt. So I think it lacks a little bit of rigidity, but notice there's scraping on this, and scraping here that I do not see on the South Bend. Furthermore, this is 5.5 inches, whereas the South Bend is 4.5 inches, and really the wider the better. So here's the South Bend, again with only 4.5 inches, but note the dovetails, and the lock, of course, is on the other side, and it's a cam type of affair. And I do not see scrapings here or here. Probably not necessary anyway. The South Bend has a lock here for the cranking mechanism for the vertical, whereas the Rhodes does not. This is the mechanism for raising and lowering the table with a square-headed bolt. More susceptible to getting chips on it and so on, but I don't see a big deal on that. Also notice the height right here is much, or I shouldn't say height, but the length of the, or width of the casting here is substantially more than what you see on the South Bend. And on the South Bend, we raise and lower the entire table with this crank. Remember, there is a worm and a worm wheel under here, which you got to see when I had the whole machine apart. There are no graduations here to tell how much you are raising it, nor are there any on the Rhodes. The South Bend has a nice switch box here with a little tray, a Cutler hammer switch, and a little toggle switch for the light, which is very nice. It really looks like it belongs on there. and then we know that somebody just put a handy box with a light switch on this. Doesn't look very good, but it is perfectly functional. I like the fact that the Rhodes has a cast iron door that is on a hinge, so you don't need to take it off. You can just open and close it, lift it, and it's locked. And I can open the hatch over here by removing the hatch. And remember, there's 1 quart of oil down in the crankcase. There is no oil in the crankcase of the Rhodes. This is called the column. Notice how high the column is on the Rhodes compared to the South Bend. Now, I really don't know if this is significant or not, but I'm going to run through it anyway. So the Rhodes is 17 inches high. The South Bend is only 12 inches. Now, I'm not including the base here because that's a totally separate piece. On the Rhodes, this is the pivot pin. That is, the entire rocker mechanism moves off of that. So we have a distance here of about 11 inches the way it's set now, from here to the center of this, 11 inches. Let's see what we got on the South Bend. So this is the pivot point on the South Bend, and it's only 5.5 inches about. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference. Now, what does that mean? I'm not sure. It'll take you physicists and you guys that understand leverage and all of that to tell me, are we getting more power, or what is the reason for the longer crank mechanism on the Rhodes, or hadn't they refined it yet? And here's the Rhodes in operation. It is much noisier than the other machine, possibly because it's more worn out. I really do not know, but it's quite clunky. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, the analysis and comparison of the Rhodes against the South Bend 7-inch shaper. Be sure and watch my 10-part video where I rebuild that other shaper. You might enjoy that if you haven't seen it already. This is tubalcain saying so long for now. I hope you can hear me over the racket. Well, this old girl still cuts pretty nice. We got a real smooth finish on this 1-inch thick aluminum. Well, after I finished the video, I did a little research on vintagemachinery.org, and I came up with some brochures, original sales brochures for this machine, and the patent as well. And I discovered that I made a few mistakes or errors in what I told you, so I want to go through that, correct myself just a little bit, and remember there'll be a lot of still pictures at the end of the video as well, so check those out. All right, let's have a look at that literature. Thanks for sticking with me. As you can see in this sales brochure, they made a convertible, and it was an 8-inch horizontal and a 4-inch vertical. I was wrong when I said that it was driven off of a line shaft. The original design calls for a big bulky motor. That probably was a half-horse motor, and you can see that my machine still has that projection on it, but somebody removed the motor and the shaft and equipped it with a more modern quarter-horse electric motor, but it was electrically driven. And furthermore, there were 3 speeds. You can see the step pulley here, and it went anywhere from 30 to 95 strokes per minute. And this is the exact model that I own, a 7-inch horizontal crank shaper, and there are 3 steps on this cone pulley. And you can see that there was an electrical switch. And there's a nice view from the other side. Here's the combination machine, and this is not mine, but they are telling you that 10 screws and 1 pin can change it from a horizontal shaper to a vertical slotter. Pretty clever. This is the original patent by Mr. Rhodes in 1914. I could not find one for the horizontal part. And this is a page out of the 1953 South Bend tool catalog. And that's the year that the pressure lubrication system was introduced.